Welcome back, Dr. Larry Carnes, and we have a very exciting guest with us today, very special guest who's going to introduce himself. How are you today, sir?
Well, I'm doing as best I can.
Great. Do this for us. Introduce yourself to our viewing audience. Tell them a little bit about who you are.
So, my name is Griff. I've been in California all my life since I was born 60 high odd years ago. And my whole life has been one of investigating and learning and developing what I know and researching and applying very strict academic standards to it all.
Yes.
So, that's why I know whereof I speak.
Excellent. Excellent. You've written this book, The Resurrection of the Roman Catholic Church, a guide to the traditional Catholic community. I'm looking here as I was researching. For nearly 20 centuries, the Roman Catholic Church withstood all of the currents of change and history and maintained a closely guarded orthodoxy, which has always served as the basis and center of all Christianity. Powerful statement. Talk to us and speak to our viewing audience about the book that you've written and talk to us about this powerful statement.
So this book has to do with recent history of the Catholic Church in particular, because if you study that history specifically, it's a very clear line of development and so forth. And then suddenly in the 1960s, because of this council that gets held called Vatican II, everything skews off in a very strange and alien direction. And that has confused a lot of people. And more importantly, there's been the question of what people can do to respond to this. And what I have done in this researching this book was discovering these communities, tracking them down, communicating with them, and helping them to explain to me what it was that they were doing and why and who they are and where they've come from. So this book is designed to take one by the hand and say, here's where this is, here's who these people are, and introduce you to all of these respective communities that comprise the traditional Catholic community, as I call it.
Yes, yes, yes. So speak to our viewing audience about some of the concepts and why you think it would be beneficial for them to get this book so that you can educate them about what's going on.
So the concepts are with the tradition is sticking with the tradition of the church. As I've said, the church has had over 1900 years from Pentecost until Vatican II to tell us a great deal about what the faith is. And that we're to safeguard that faith. As the Apostle Paul once wrote, should an angel or anyone else, or even we ourselves, come to you with a different gospel, let them be anathema.
Yes.
Well, when you get a different gospel or a different Jesus, you're talking something that, well, it's anathema. But the real church continues. And that is the key thing. Most people think they look at this great big organization run from Vatican City and they think, oh, it's still there, but what a mess it is. Well, it's more than just a mess. It's not Catholic anymore. When did that happen? How did that happen? And how did that which is still Catholic as a church, as a society, and not merely individuals scattered about, how did that survive?
Yes.
That's the idea. How did we do this? And who are we? And how can we be found? Who do we look up?
Now, that's a powerful statement. You said the Vatican is still there, but it's the traditional teachings that have been there for a long time aren't the same. So there's been some changes. I noticed you said Vatican II. Is that what you're referring to? The
That
internal
is
change
correct.
that's taking place.
That's where it all started, right there.
Okay. Now I see here, chapter 1, how to identify the Roman Catholic Church. Classic Catholic teachings states that the church is one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. You mentioned unity of government, holiness in accordance with the 10 commandments of God and the 6 commandments of the church. And then I like what you said that Catholic means universal. Speak to our viewing audience about that.
Well, let's go with what universal is. To be Catholic is, first of all, the whole of what the church teaches. How do you get heresy? You get somebody who gets to some part of what the church teaches and they say, I don't like that. I'm going to not believe that. And that's
Yes.
how every heresy gets its start, because they don't believe all of the church. To be Catholic, and it doesn't mean you have to know everything. It would be an incredible human mind to even know everything the church is taught.
Yes.
But we are aligned with it. We know who they are. We align ourselves with them. We trust them to tell us anything we don't know, and that their answer will tell us whatever it is we are asking about, if it's whatever it may be. And that's why we turn to them. So it's the whole church, the whole community. It's meant to be around the whole world, and it's supposed to be the whole of time. It is meant to exist literally from the time when it was founded, clear to the end of time as we know it. So that is a divine promise.
Okay.
So
Talking
I
about the
don't know. I think
foundation.
that's
Yeah,
enough.
yeah. The foundation is set. And if I'm listening and hearing you, build upon the foundation that's set
Yes,
and don't try to lay another foundation to replace. Would
exactly.
that be
Got to keep
correct?
that original foundation.
Yes. You hear chapter 2, some biblical and current parallels to the liturgical crisis. What are you speaking about when you mention that?
Well, I think that there may have been some ways that the Bible is full of so many things that predict stuff. Usually, we're thinking about the end of the world or something, but I think a lot of the prophecies also pertain to stuff that happened throughout the history of the church. It has been said that the Apostolic Creed is in some ways kind of like an outline of the history of the church,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be so. It's kind of like the Christological curiosities and issues and agonies and heresies they had to deal with are come up first in the creed, and then some of the others, until we're getting down to the part, I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church. We're about in that part right now, where a lot of people don't even believe in the idea of church. Like, I don't need no church. It's just me and Jesus,
Yeah.
but that's not how he set it up. If you're stranded on a desert island, that's one thing. But if you're able to watch this, you're not on that desert island, and not really, yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So I'm listening to you. Would that and as I hear you speaking, I tie the reference where we're told, don't forsake the assembling of ourselves together.
Bingo.
Yes,
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 that's
yes.
in the Bible.
Powerful, 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 powerful statement. And you mentioned now, I think, just reflecting back a little bit, with the COVID-19 and people had the reason not to assemble themselves together. And for some reason, there hasn't been a recovery from that mindset, that mentality. Would you say that's correct?
Well, there has been a similar amount of that. In our churches, we really understand the value. And one of the things you can't do unless you are there personally is receive actual sacraments. If I'm a
Yes.
priest, I can
Mm,
say mass and I can give you the body and blood. I can't, I'm not really a priest, but if I were a priest, I could hand you a communion that is
yeah.
actually and literally the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. That is an established Catholic doctrine. They call it transubstantiation.
Yes.
But how am I going to give that? How am I going to give that to you through a screen? I can't. I
Can reach you.
can't do
Yeah.
that.
The Eucharist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, how am
You,
I going to baptize you? I know I can pour water on my phone, but you're not going to get wet.
yes. Yes.
It's meant to be done in person, and
Yes.
that's a very key aspect. And the whole church has a physical connection. Every priest has had his hand has been laid on by some bishop who has had hands laid on their hands of the bishop, all the way back to the apostles. So there
Talking
is
about
even
the
a physical
succession now.
contact all the way from the beginning, clear to now, but now found really only in the traditional Catholic community, because the non-traditionalists are not, technically, I don't think they're Catholics, but, that's not for me to judge individuals, but people may be trying their best, but if they don't know, I mean, there's a lot of sincere
Mm,
Protestants out there. I'm sure they're trying the best they know, and God will have to judge each case. But the bottom line is that physical contact somewhere along the line got broken. I
yeah.
believe that happened at Vatican II and since then. And so now we're the ones who really have that done. the way God set it out as it's supposed to be done.
Okay. The beginning of today's stand for the faith. That's in chapter 6. The beginning of today's stand for the faith. What does that look like? And what's the intent when you're communicating this in the book?
That is the point where I shift from some of the background whys and wherefores for all of this to the beginnings of the actual history of individuals. This is not the story of my life, by the way. A lot of this history took place before me.
Yes.
I was alive, but it was, but I didn't know. I didn't grow up Catholic, but or even religious for that matter. But as I said, I had to find that stuff gradually and come across it and seek it and seek it and seek it. You know, seek and ye shall find. And I sought and I found. That's how I see it, and I continue to find as I continue to learn more. But what happens is I learn that a lot of history had taken place. A lot of the people who were involved in that history, they either were the people or knew the people who were there at the beginning of when something had to keep the church going, when everything was going crazy in what I call the Vatican organization.
Okay.
So that's what had to be there. And so that's the beginning. It's just the first, there was a priest here who just simply decides to continue the mass and sacraments and teachings of his ordination rather than to get in step with this new program. And then it'd be another priest there and here and there, and maybe an occasional bishop here and there. And they'd kind of start pulling together and getting organized and pulling, and so forth.
Yes.
And then eventually the bishops will actually be continuing the church as is their power to do, in the absence of anything, more than that.
Wow, that's powerful. Now, we have 2 minutes left. I want you to do this for me. Disseminate to our viewing audience any contact information that you might want to disseminate, be it website, email, anything like that, if you're available to do teachings, anything like that. Speak to our viewing audience about that.
Okay. Well, obviously, I am quite available for interviews and can be contacted. Well, best way would be either through my website, which is Mr. Ubi Petrus, MrUbiPetrus.com. And that, Ubi Petrus is just a run together of 2 Latin words, where Peter is, because that to me was one of the main objects of all this study.
Okay.
Where is Peter today? Or where is the
information? We got about just a few seconds left. Your
So
contact, all of that.
There's also a channel on YouTube called Mr. Ubi Petrus, where I will have, hopefully soon, this particular video, and I already have a good many others that include interviews of myself and other things of interest, where I lay a lot of these details out.
Okay.
And so
excellent,
I believe
excellent.
I can be used through those.
So now, once again, give them that contact information once again so that they'll make sure that they capture it.
Look for Mr. Ubi Petrus, MrUbiPetrus. It'll be either Mr. Ubi Petrus as a channel on YouTube, or also MrUbiPetrus.com on the web.
Excellent. We want to thank you so much for being with us today. And of course, the book's available via Amazon. They can go there and get the book. And we want to thank you. The Resurrection of the Roman Catholic Church, a guide to the traditional Catholic community. I'm Dr. Larry Carnes. Thank you. We've had a very special guest, and we want to thank you for being our guest today.
And thank you for having me.
Dr. Larry Carnes, this has been Books of the Month. Remember to join us right here next time for Books of the Month.